Disneyland and Disney World parks are supposed to be some of the happiest places on Earth. Families and individuals travel from around the world to attend these grand theme parks. Despite these amusement parks being very family friendly, that does not always mean that they're safe. Unfortunately, accidents do happen. From ride malfunctions to accidental drownings to even decapitations. On July 17, 1955, Walt Disney opened up the first ever Disney park in Anaheim, California, naming the park Disneyland. However, the grand opening turned out to be a double-edged sword. On the bright side, Disneyland's opening day saw a large number of visitors, signaling its initial success. However, the park was overwhelmed by the turnout. Disneyland's capacity was intended for 18,000 guests, but 28,000 people showed up due to counterfeit tickets being sold on the streets. The influx of visitors caused a 7-mile traffic jam on the newly opened Interstate 5 freeway. Many children arrived at the Disneyland parking lot on school buses, only to resort to peeing on the parking lot after being stuck in traffic. The intense July heat reached 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and the freshly poured asphalt caused women's high heels to sink into it. Actors missed their cues, and visitors, unable to find drinking fountains, felt compelled to buy Pepsi and Coke products. A man with a ladder took advantage of the situation, charging people to climb over the park fence. Food supplies dwindled, Autotopia cars broke down, and a gas leak in Fantasyland forced the closure of several rides for the remainder of the day. The grand opening day of Disneyland received the nickname Black Sunday. Given that the park was new, it's no surprise that things didn't go according to plan. Fortunately, nobody was injured, which is remarkable considering there were 10,000 more people than the park's capacity limit. From the day of the opening in 1955 all the way through 1963, there were no serious accidents that led to death. But there was one instance back in 1959 that almost led to somebody's demise. This video is sponsored by Incogni, a service I didn't realize that I needed until I started using it. Let me ask you something. Ever wonder how your personal info ends up all over the internet? Creepy, right? Well, Incogni is here to make sure your data stays where it belongs, out of the hands of data brokers. Here's how it works. Incogni reaches out to those data brokers who are buying, selling, and storing your personal information without your consent, and they make them delete it. No more spam calls, no more targeted ads that make you feel like someone's reading your mind. It's like putting your digital footprint on stealth mode. I've been using Incogni, and let me just tell you, it feels great knowing my information is being taken off those lists while I sit back and do basically nothing. It's easy, effective, and honestly kind of empowering. So take control of your data today. Click the link down in the description below or use my promo code MORBIDFORFUN to get 60% off on your plan. Don't wait, your privacy is worth it. Once again, promo code MORBIDFORFUN to save 60%, or click the link down in the description below. On the evening of July 3rd, 1959, a 24-year-old Disneyland mechanic named Gary Dubach was inspecting the running gears of the Matterhorn bobsled ride. As he worked, a bobsled full of passengers came racing down the track, striking Gary and causing him to fall 100 feet off the ride. Although he survived, Gary suffered severe injuries to his arms, legs, and back, along with numerous bruises. He underwent a bone removal procedure to relieve pressure while being treated at the Santa Ana Community Hospital. Disneyland enjoyed an 8-year streak without any fatalities, which would end in 1964. Notably, this 8-year streak remains the longest period Disney has gone without a death occurring inside one of its parks. In May 1964, a 15-year-old boy named Mark Maples from Long Beach, California, was injured when he stood up and fell out of the Matterhorn bobsleds. Reports indicated that his restraints had been undone by his ride companion. Tragically, Maples succumbed to his injuries 3 days later, marking Disneyland's first ever tragedy, and there was no lawsuit filed. Before we dive further into this video, I want to mention that I will do my best to provide detailed information for each case. However, some cases have very limited information. There are a handful of accidents that are very obscure and don't really mention much of the accident for whatever reason. Just wanted to make that clear because some accidents are like a few sentences long and I do not want to waste your time, so I'm not going to add useless filler. But onto the video. Disneyland would have another tragedy in 1966. On a grad night, 19-year-old Thomas Guy Cleveland from Northridge, California attempted to sneak into Disneyland by climbing the park's 16-foot-high outer fence and getting onto the monorail track. Despite a security guard's warning about the approaching monorail train, Cleveland ignored them and tried to climb down. Unfortunately, he didn't clear the track in time and climbed onto a fiberglass canopy beneath it. But the clearance was insufficient. The oncoming train struck and killed him, dragging his body 30 to 40 feet along the track. Disneyland spokesman reported that the accident occurred at 9:25 p.m. when the monorail, traveling at 25 miles per hour, was approaching its Tomorrowland stop. The monorail operator, Dallas Baker, told police he did not see the youth on the track before the incident and only realized something was wrong when he felt a bump and the train stopped due to a loss of power. Investigators noted that the boy's body was badly mutilated. Passengers in the nose cone of the train also reported feeling a bump but were unaware of the accident. The train remained stranded for about 10 minutes before being towed to the next station by a work car. From the looks of it, no lawsuit was filed. In August 1967, a year after Disneyland's first fatal incident, 15-year-old Ricky Lee Yama from Hawthorne, California, was killed while attempting to jump between two moving people mover cars. As the ride passed through a tunnel, he stumbled and fell onto the track, where an oncoming train of cars crushed him under its wheels and dragged his body a few hundred feet before being stopped by a ride operator. The attraction had only been open for just a month at the time of the accident, and there were no lawsuits filed.
On Friday, October 1st of 1971, after 7 years of planning, approximately 10,000 visitors gathered near Orlando, Florida for the grand opening of Walt Disney World, the Magic Kingdom spanning around 107 acres. Disney World included Adventureland, Fantasyland, Frontierland, Liberty Square, Tomorrowland, and Main Street USA, with about 5,500 cast members. Sadly, Walt Disney never got to experience Disney World, as he passed away on December 5th, 1966 from lung cancer. From the 4 years between 1968 and 1972, Disneyland and World had no fatal accidents, which is their second longest streak without any fatalities in Disney parks, but that would change in 1973. On June 20th, 1973, 18-year-old park visitor Bogdan Delarot and his 10-year-old brother managed to sneak into the Disneyland park past closing hours by stowing away on Tom Sawyer Island. Rather than seeking help from cast members, they decided to swim across the rivers of America to avoid detection. Bogdan carried his younger brother on his back since he couldn't swim, but grew exhausted, swimming halfway and drowning. His brother stayed afloat by dog paddling and was eventually rescued by cast members. By then, Bogdan was nowhere to be seen and was found the next morning. There was no lawsuit filed. Rest in peace to him and everyone else we've talked about in this video.
1974 marked the first year with two fatal tragedies in Disney parks, with one death occurring at Disneyland and the first ever fatality at Disney World. On July 8, 1974, 18-year-old Deborah Gail Stone, a new employee in Disneyland who had just graduated from Santa Ana High School, was tragically crushed to death after slipping between a revolving wall and a stationary platform inside the American Sings attraction. During a ride intermission, she ended up in the wrong place, though it was unclear if this was due to insufficient training or a simple misstep, as the ride had only been open for about a week. The attraction was closed for 2 days to clean up and to install new carpeting, warning lights, and breakaway walls to prevent future accidents. Deborah was the first ever cast member to meet her demise in a Disney park. Stone's parents sued Disneyland for the death of their daughter, which resulted in a small settlement. During that same year, Disney World faced its first fatality. On November 4th, 1974, a small explosion in the maintenance area near the Magic Kingdom killed 49-year-old carpenter from Orlando and injured another worker. The men were working inside a half-finished 66-foot aluminum boat when the explosion occurred nearly 2 hours after the theme park had closed for the night. Both were taken to Orange Vista Hospital, where one of the carpenters succumbed to his injuries. Orange County detectives later reported that the explosion might have been caused by glue fumes igniting from the filament of a fluorescent light. On October 28, 1976, the carpenter's widow filed a lawsuit against Travelers Indemnity Company over her husband's death. Luckily for Disney, they did not have any accidents in 1975 and 1976. But in 1977, Disney would have another incident. On August 11th, 1977, a 4-year-old boy from Dalton, Illinois, drowned in the moat surrounding Cinderella's castle at Disney's Magic Kingdom. The child had climbed over a fence surrounding the 5-foot deep moat and tragically fell in. His mother filed a lawsuit against Magic Kingdom, alleging negligence due to the fence height being insufficient, reportedly no higher than 31 inches, as claimed by her lawyer. Initially filed for $4 million, the case was later reduced after being dismissed on October 8, 1981, and then revived in December 1982 by the 5th District Court of Appeals. Eventually, jurors awarded the mother $1.5 million after determining both parties were at fault in the incident. The next Disneyland fatality would happen 2 years later. In 1979, Cheryl Ann Hoffman and her family rode Space Mountain at Disneyland, but she fell ill during the ride. When the rocket returned to the station, attempts to assist her off the ride failed. Cast members tried to signal the operator to remove the rocket from the track so she could disembark, but the signals were misunderstood. As a result, Cheryl went through the ride again, and upon returning, she was found unconscious. Attendees moved her to a bench and tried to calm her down, with Disneyland's nurse reassuring her husband. Despite their efforts, Cheryl's condition worsened. After being taken to the hospital, Cheryl remained in a coma for a week before passing away. Doctors later discovered a tumor in her heart that had been dislodged by the ride's movements. Fragments traveled through her bloodstream to her brain, leading to her death. A subsequent lawsuit against the park was later dismissed. In 1980, Disneyland would have another accident, while Disney World would have two. On June 7, 1980, in Disneyland, California, 18-year-old Gerardo Gonzalez tragically lost his life when he was crushed by the People Mover while attempting to jump between moving cars. The incident took place inside the Super Speed Tunnel and was very similar to the 1967 incident that we talked about earlier, making the People Mover the first ever attraction to take more than one life. From the looks of it, I couldn't find a lawsuit for this one. On August 12, 1980, a 10-year-old girl from Caracas, Venezuela, became ill while riding Space Mountain at Walt Disney World Resort in Central Florida. She later died due to a pre-existing heart condition and hypoxia. This tragic event highlighted the potential risks for individuals with underlying health issues when riding certain attractions and emphasized the importance of health precautions for theme park visitors. There isn't much publicly available information regarding a lawsuit related to this specific incident, likely due to the fact that the victim was underage. Disney tends to handle such matters with a high degree of privacy, particularly when minors are involved. While it's possible that a lawsuit was filed, details would have likely been limited or undisclosed to protect the privacy of the family and due to the sensitive nature of the case. On Thursday, August 22, 1980, 10 days after the previous tragedy, a rare and deadly disease caused by an amoeba was found in Florida freshwater lakes, which claimed the life of an 11-year-old boy from New York who had been swimming at Walt Disney World's River Country during his vacation. The disease, amoebic meningoencephalitis, affects the nervous system and brain. According to doctors, it had already killed 2 Florida children earlier in the month that weren't in Disney parks, and a state health official suggested it was also the cause of death for another child. From the looks of it, it seemed that there was an attempt to sue Disney. However, it was ruled that this bacteria can live in any warm water, so it was not the fault of Disney, meaning that they can't be held responsible.
On March 7, 1981, an 18-year-old man named Melcy Yorba was fatally stabbed during a fight in Tomorrowland at Disneyland. The altercation began after the victim allegedly pinched the girlfriend of a drunk 28-year-old James P. O'Driscoll, who then attacked him with a knife. How he was able to bring a knife into Disneyland, I don't know. Following the incident, the victim's family sued Disneyland for $60 million, claiming the park failed to provide adequate emergency medical treatment by not calling outside paramedics and instead relying on its own staff. The jury found Disneyland negligent in their response and awarded the family $600,000. This tragic event marked the first homicide in Disneyland's history. James P. O'Driscoll, who is from San Diego, was convicted of second-degree murder in Mel's death and is serving a prison sentence of 16 years to life. On the 16th of April 1981, a 34-year-old woman collapsed while waiting in line for food near Sleeping Beauty's castle at the end of Main Street in Disneyland, California. She was taken to the Palm Harbor General Hospital in Garden Grove, California, where unfortunately she passed away. Till this day, it is unknown what caused her to pass away. Information is very limited in this case.
This next tragedy is a depressing one. On April 6, 1982, a tragic incident occurred at a park restaurant where a 2-year-old girl from Sunrise, Florida, lost her life. While standing in line with her family outside the Coral Isle coffee shop, she and her 12-year-old sister were playing with a rope attached to a large menu board. Tragically, the board fell on the toddler when they pulled on the rope, which resulted to her passing. Emergency services pronounced her deceased upon arrival at Orange Vista Hospital. 10 days later, on April 16, 1982, a 36-year-old woman collapsed and passed away shortly after walking away from the water flume ride in River Country. There isn't much information on this case as I searched the web and only found 2 mentions of this tragedy. On June 12, 1982, a 1-year-old girl from Muscatine, Iowa, tragically lost her life after falling from a tram that made a sudden turn in the parking lot leading to the Magic Kingdom. Once again, there really isn't much information I could find on this case. I did find an old newspaper that allegedly had more information on it, but it was locked behind a paywall. On August 9, 1982, a 14-year-old boy from Erie, North Dakota, tragically drowned at River Country. He slid down a 60-foot slide into water slightly less than 6 feet deep at River Country Cove. Approximately 5 minutes later, he was pulled from the water and later pronounced dead at the hospital.
The following year, there was only one incident at Disneyland. On June 4th, 1983, 18-year-old Philip Strawhan from Albuquerque, New Mexico, drowned at Disneyland's Rivers of America during the park's annual Grad Night event. Philip and a friend, both intoxicated, had stolen a rubber emergency boat, which is from a restricted area on Tom Sawyer Island. While attempting to return to shore, the boat struck a rock, causing Philip to fall into the water. His friend managed to swim ashore and ended up alerting park security. Philip's body was later retrieved by Disneyland personnel, and he was then pronounced dead. This incident led to Philip's mother actually suing Disneyland for allowing her intoxicated son onto the premises, and the travel agency for inadequate supervision. However, this case was dismissed by Disney.
In the following year, on January 3, 1984, around 3:30 p.m., Dolly Regine Young, a 48-year-old woman from Vermont, California, was tragically decapitated as she was ejected from the Matterhorn bobsled car and struck by the following bobsled, which makes this the first decapitation that has ever happened in a Disney park. An investigation revealed that her seatbelt was not fastened. Seated in the back, her absence went unnoticed. It remains unclear whether she deliberately unbuckled her seatbelt or if it malfunctioned. And from the looks of it, Disney did get sued, and they settled for an undisclosed amount. A few months later, another tragic accident claimed the lives of an entire family, though it was a freak accident and not Disney's fault. On November 21, 1984, a husband and wife, along with their 1-year-old daughter, lost their lives and their other 2 children were injured. The family's single-engine plane was forced to make an emergency landing, crash landing into the Epcot parking lot. The Piper aircraft, en route from Greer, South Carolina to Kissimmee, Florida for a Disney World vacation, hit a light pole as it approached an empty section of the parking lot. The collision severed the right wing, causing the plane to crash into several parked cars. Rest in peace to the people that lost their lives in the plane crash. In 1985, there would only be one accident in Disneyland. On September 14, 1985, a 7-year-old girl from Torrance, California, was walking with her uncle at Disneyland. While searching for his car in the parking lot, she fell under a moving tour bus, which tragically crushed her. Paramedics arrived and pronounced her dead at the scene. I'm very curious how on earth did this even happen? Like, did she run under the bus on purpose? Like, did she run in front of the bus? I don't know. I only found 3 mentions of this accident online, one of them being from Wikipedia and another from a Disneyland wiki page. In the following year, Disney World would get another tragic accident that took the lives of 2 individuals. On January 14th, 1986, workers at Walt Disney World's Epcot Center discovered the bodies of 2 Massachusetts tourists in a retention pond near the main parking lot. The tourists, who appeared to have missed a bridge, drove their car into the pond during heavy rainstorms on the previous Thursday or Friday. Orange County Sheriff's Commander John reported that approximately 5 inches of rain fell on that Friday. The car had gone over a curb, down an embankment, and into the pond, which collects runoff water from the parking lot. The driver missed the bridge by about 40 feet. Authorities believe the man and woman in the car struggled to escape as the windshield wipers and headlights of the rented Chevette were found in the on position. The pond, which is about 6 feet deep at its deepest point, is in the farthest eastern section of the parking lot, which had not been used since January 4th, 1986. Charles Ridgway, Disney World's publicity director, mentioned that cars from an adjacent section of the lot had been using the same bridge to exit. Disney World landscape workers found the bodies at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, about 15 feet from the bridge and floating outside the car. The names of the victims, both of Oriental descent, were withheld until their family members could be notified. The man was 33 years old, while the woman's age was unknown. Their hometown in Massachusetts was not identified. The 2 were scheduled to check out of a motel on International Drive on Friday, and no foul play was suspected. It was just a tragic accident that involved heavy rain. Rest in peace.
In 1987, there would be a total of 3 accidents, one being in Disneyland and the 2 others happening in Disney World. The first accident took place in the early morning of March 7th, 1987, approximately at 12:50 a.m. A confrontation between rival Samoan and Tongan gang members took place in Disneyland's parking lot, which escalated into a violent brawl. Amid the chaos, shots were fired, resulting in the tragic death of a 15-year-old boy. 18-year-old Coletti Neo was convicted of second-degree murder, but the conviction was later overturned by a state appeal court. Once again, this is another story that involved death near a Disneyland park that wasn't Disney's fault. The other 2 accidents happened in Disney World. On May 23, 1987, a 6-year-old boy named Miguel drowned in a swimming pool at Disney's Port Wilderness Resort campground. His family later sued Walt Disney World, arguing that there should have been more than 1 lifeguard on duty to monitor the crowded pool, and that a safety line should have separated the shallow and deep ends. The Diaz family from Cooper City settled the lawsuit for $250,000 just before the trial was set to begin, although they had initially sought about $950,000. The lawsuit claimed that a Disney lifeguard failed to adequately supervise and rescue Miguel. The incident occurred during a family trip to the campground, which they had visited almost monthly for the past 2 years. At around 2 p.m., Miguel's grandfather left him in the pool while other relatives remained nearby. When the grandfather returned minutes later, Miguel had already been pulled from the water, and attempts to revive him were unsuccessful. This was according to a report by the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Skyleidoscope was a daytime show at Epcot's World Showcase, featuring performances on the World Showcase Lagoon and in the skies with various light aircraft and water vehicles, and starring Journey into Imagination's Dreamfinder. The show ran from September 1985 until the fall of 1987. On August 1st, 1987, during a practice flight, a 27-year-old cast member was flying in an ultralight plane at an altitude of 500 to 1,000 feet, when the aircraft suffered catastrophic structural failure. The plane nosedived into the ground about 150 yards from Disney's airfield and 1.5 miles from Epcot, resulting in the tragic death of the cast member. This fatal crash led to the show's cancellation. I never heard of this Disney attraction before, but after looking at some footage, this was clearly a liability nightmare, because it looks like anything could go wrong at any point.
Luckily for 1988, Disney didn't have any accidents, but that couldn't be said for the following year. In 1989, Disney World experienced some tragedies. On July 10, 1989, a 13-year-old boy from Longwood, Florida, drowned at River Country while swimming with classmates and counselors. About 15 minutes later, another swimmer felt the boy under his feet in 5 feet of water and pulled him out. When pulled from the water, the boy was not breathing. His eyes had dark circles and his lips turned blue. Christopher was found around 11:30 a.m. on the bottom of the pool, about the size of a football field, roughly 25 feet from a lifeguard stand. Despite the efforts of lifeguards performing CPR until paramedics arrived, he was pronounced dead upon arrival at Sand Lake Hospital. Christopher's staff, the boy, had visited other water parks that summer with classmates from Pace Private School, which serves learning disabled children. He was known as a delightful boy who loved people, leaving his parents, Bruce and Adria's staff, with many unanswered questions about his drowning. None of the lifeguards saw or heard anything unusual. A witness, Kim, a scuba diving instructor trained in CPR and first aid, questioned the effectiveness of their efforts. She claimed the lifeguards performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation incorrectly by not allowing air to escape from Christopher's nostrils. Despite these efforts, Christopher was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital, and there's no mention of a lawsuit.
Another accident that occurred in Disney World in 1989, on October 9th of 1989, a 33-year-old woman from Glen Cove, New York, was killed when a small speedboat collided with a ferry boat in the Seven Seas Lagoon. She and her 8-year-old son were attempting to videotape friends and family members who were in the water skiing when the ferry broadsided their speedboat. A crew member and a visitor on the ferry quickly dove into the water to rescue her son, who was unharmed. The woman's husband sued Disney for $240 million, arguing that the ferry's operators should have seen the speedboat before the collision occurred. He claimed Disney offered a settlement in the 7 figures to avoid going to court, but he declined, deeming the offer too low. The final outcome of the lawsuit is still unknown.
In the following 2 years, Disney wouldn't have any fatal tragedies. But in 1992, Disney would suffer another 2 fatal tragedies. On September 12, 1992, Alan J. Ferris, a 37-year-old man from Rochester, New York, entered Epcot after it had closed for the night, brandishing a shotgun at 3 security guards. He demanded to see his ex-girlfriend who worked at the park. Ferris fired 4 shots at the guards and then took 2 of them hostage in a restroom near the Journey into Imagination Pavilion. As Orange County Sheriff's deputies surrounded the area, Ferris released his hostages and emerged from the restroom with the shotgun pressed to his chest. After a brief exchange with deputies, he turned the weapon on himself and took himself out. Ferris was pronounced dead on arrival at the Orlando Regional Medical Center. Investigators attributed his actions to a recent breakup with his longtime girlfriend. This was the first self-offing that has occurred in Disney World. On November 12th, 1992, an off-duty cast member from Disney World tragically fell to his death from the 15th floor of the Contemporary Resort's Top of the World restaurant. While sitting on the ledge, he encountered a swarm of wasps. Attempting to swat them away, he lost his balance and fell 11 stories.
The next tragedy would happen at Disneyland in the year 1994. On September 3rd, 1994, a 76-year-old man tragically offed himself by jumping from a 9th floor balcony at the Disneyland Motel. This incident marked the first ever self-offing at a Disneyland resort. In the following year, Disney would suffer another tragedy. On May 16th, 1995, a 4-year-old girl from Galveston, Texas, with a known heart condition, lost consciousness while riding the Body Wars attraction in the Wonders of Life Pavilion at Epcot. The ride was promptly halted, and paramedics swiftly airlifted her to Orlando Regional Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead. Despite an autopsy, it remained inconclusive whether the ride had exacerbated her pre-existing heart condition. On July 6, 1996, David Daigle, a 23-year-old parolee, died after either jumping or falling from the 14th floor of the Disneyland Hotel. David, who had been released from a halfway house on June 30th, was not a guest of the hotel and had climbed over several balconies. His body was discovered shortly after 8:30 p.m. Despite an investigation, no note was found. and it remained unclear if his fall was intentional or accidental.
Fortunately, in 1997, there were no fatal accidents at Disneyland. However, 1998 marked a tragic year with an incident on Christmas Eve that led to the death of 33-year-old Luan Fee Dawson and injuries to his wife and a park employee. An investigation by California's Division of Occupational Safety and Health identified 2 serious safety violations: misuse of equipment and insufficient employee training. Dawson, a Microsoft programmer, was fatally injured while waiting to board the Columbia sailing ship, which was a gas-powered ride. Christine Carpenter, a 30-year-old employee who lacked proper training, improperly attached a dock anchoring mooring line to a cast iron cleat on the moving ship. The bolts securing the cleat failed, sending the 9-pound metal piece into the crowd, striking Dawson, his wife Lu Tui Vong, and Carpenter. Vong, who was 43, sustained head injuries, and Carpenter suffered a broken ankle. The investigation revealed that Disney had not adequately trained Carpenter, who violated the park policy by working the dock alone without the required 8-hour training. The faulty cleat, which had pre-existing issues, was not designed to stop the vessel but to secure it in place. Disney was fined $12,500, the maximum allowed for these violations, as the park knew or should have known about the potential for serious harm. Disney faced significant criticism for allegedly restricting outside medical personnel to avoid alarming visitors. In response to the incident, Disney reinstated lead foremen on most rides, and Anaheim Police Department stationed police officers in the park to expedite response times. Dawson, who had escaped from Vietnam as a youth, graduated from the University of Washington and was raising a family in Duvall, Washington. Ultimately, Disney admitted fault and settled with Dawson's family for an estimated $25 million.
On February 14, 1999, a tragic accident occurred at Disney World, resulting in the death of a 65-year-old part-time custodian. While cleaning the Fantasyland Skyway Station platform, the ride was inadvertently activated by staff, likely unaware of his presence. In an attempt to save himself, the custodian grabbed a passing seat but lost his grip and fell 40 feet, landing in a flower bed near the Dumbo ride. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at Orlando Regional Medical Center. The Skyway ride, already scheduled for closure, was permanently shut down on November 10, 1999. Following the incident, OSHA fined Disney World $4,500 for violating federal safety codes related to the work area. This accident echoed a similar event at Disneyland Resort in 1994, where a 30-year-old man fell 20 feet from a Skyway cabin and attempted to sue Disney. However, it was later revealed that the man had jumped intentionally, and his case was dismissed.
We have finally entered the 2000s, but sadly, this was a bad year for Disney, as they had 3 incidents that led to fatalities, 2 of them being in Disneyland and the other at Disney World. On June 25, 2000, a 23-year-old woman named Cristina Moreno from Barcelona, Spain, exited Disneyland's Indiana Jones ride, complaining of a severe headache. She was hospitalized later that day and discovered to have suffered a brain hemorrhage. Tragically, she died on September 1, 2000, due to a cerebral aneurysm. Her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Disney, claiming the violent shaking and stresses of the ride caused her condition. In a significant ruling, the California Supreme Court determined that amusement parks are common carriers akin to planes, trains, elevators, and ski lifts. This classification imposes a heightened duty of care, requiring amusement parks to provide the same level of safety as other common carriers. Disneyland settled the lawsuit, which had been ongoing for 5 years, for an undisclosed amount. The settlement came after an interlocutory appeal, but before a final decision on the case's merits. Moreno's medical costs were estimated at more than $1.3 million. Disneyland spokesman Rob Dowdy confirmed the settlement, but did not disclose its terms. On September 22, 2000, a tragic incident occurred at Disneyland, where a 4-year-old boy fell from the Roger Rabbit ride vehicle and was dragged underneath, resulting in severe internal injuries, cardiac arrest, and brain damage. Disney settled a lawsuit for an undisclosed sum in January 2002, without admitting fault. Despite efforts, the child never fully recovered and passed away at age 13 in 2009. Investigations revealed that a malfunctioning lap bar and improper seating placement contributed to the accident. Following the incident, Disneyland adjusted its emergency procedures, directing operators to call 911 immediately, rather than relying solely on internal security. Cal/OSHA mandated additional safety enhancements for the attraction 3 months later. On November 5, 2000, a 37-year-old man from St. Petersburg, Florida, tragically lost his life at Disney's Magic Kingdom. While riding Splash Mountain, he felt ill and attempted to reach one of the attraction's marked emergency exits. In doing so, he exited the moving vehicle and was fatally struck by the following vehicle. The man was transported to Celebration Hospital, where he later died. Orange County Sheriff's Commander Bernie Prescia stated that foul play was not suspected, and Disney officials confirmed that the ride did not malfunction. The ride was expected to reopen the following Monday. The victim had been at the park with friends for most of the day.
Luckily, in 2001 and 2002, there were 0 accidents in both parks. However, in 2003, there were 2 accidents at Disneyland and 1 over at Disney World. From here on forward, every year between 2003 through 2024, there is at least 1 or more deaths at the Disney parks. The first accident happened on February 7th, 2003 at Disney World. A 31-year-old woman tripped and fractured her ankle on stairs, leading to a catch pool. She died of pulmonary embolism the following month. That's literally all the information I found online, and sorry if I wasn't specific enough. It's only stated on the DAM firm website. Now, I didn't know that Disney World had pools, so maybe they're talking about the hotels which are located inside of the parks. I wish we had a little bit more detail on that case. The next tragedy happened at Disneyland on April 22, 2003. A 36-year-old stage technician at Disneyland Resort fell 60 feet from a catwalk in the Hyperion Theater, leading to an investigation by the Cal/OSHA. The victim never regained consciousness and died on May 8, 2003. Following the incident, Cal/OSHA fined Disneyland Resort $18,350 in October 2003 for safety violations related to the technician's death. On September 5, 2003, a 22-year-old man named Marcelo Torres died after suffering severe blunt force trauma and extensive internal bleeding in a derailment of the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad roller coaster, which also injured 10 other riders. As the train entered a tunnel, an axle came loose and jammed against a brake section, causing the locomotive to become airborne and strike the tunnel ceiling. The locomotive then fell on top of the first passenger car, crushing the victim. The investigation revealed that improper maintenance was the cause of the accident. Reports showed that the derailment resulted from a mechanical failure due to omissions during a maintenance procedure. Fasteners on the left side upstop guide wheel on the locomotive's flowing axle were not tightened and secured according to specifications, leading to the collision between the first passenger car and the underside of the locomotive. Some attributed the incident to the new cost-conscious maintenance culture introduced by Paul Pressler and consultants McKinsey and Company in 1997, which included rehabilitation-centered maintenance.
In 2004, there was only 1 accident at Disney World. On February 11, 2004, Javier Cruz, a 38-year-old father of 2 and cast member who had worked at Walt Disney World for 8 years, tragically died at the Magic Kingdom while dressed as Pluto. Cruz was struck and run over by the Beauty and the Beast float in the Share a Dream Come True parade just before entering a public viewing area in Frontierland. Disney representatives noted that, quote, very few, if any, guests witnessed the incident. As a result, OSHA fined Disney $6,300 for having employees in restricted areas. Cruz had been performing in the daily afternoon parade when the accident occurred.
In 2005, there would be 4 fatalities at Disney World in Florida. In February, a 77-year-old woman from Minnesota had lost consciousness and died after being on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. The medical examiner's report indicated that she had already been in poor health and because of the ride, she experienced several mini strokes, and her death was eventually concluded as not unexpected. On April 30th of 2005, 30-year-old Ryan Norman from Mooresville, Indiana, lost consciousness shortly after exiting the same ride, and he later died. Norman, who wore a pacemaker, had a known heart condition. An investigation then ensued that confirmed the ride was indeed functioning properly, and it was not responsible for his death. On June 13th of 2005, 4-year-old Dowdy Banyawami tragically died after riding the same attraction. An autopsy released on November 15th by the Orange County Medical Examiner's Office revealed that he had sadly passed away from an undiagnosed and unknown pre-existing heart condition. The condition is known as IMH, or idiopathic myocardial hypertrophy. On June 12th of 2006, his parents would actually file a lawsuit against Disney World, alleging that their son should not have been allowed to be on the ride and that the medical response was inadequate. The lawsuit would then go on to be dismissed on January 11th of 2007, with both sides covering their own attorney fees. And finally, on August 4th of 2005, a 12-year-old girl from Newport, Virginia, got sick while using the wave pool. Lifeguards noticed her laying down on the side of the pool, and they spoke with her. Initially, she claimed that she was fine, but she lost consciousness after standing up. And despite the lifeguards performing CPR until the paramedics arrived, she was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the Celebration Hospital. The autopsy would reveal that she died of arrhythmia caused by an early-stage viral heart infection.
In 2006, Disney World would have another 4 fatalities, making them have 8 tragedies in the span of 2 years. On April 12, 2006, a 49-year-old woman from Schmitten, Germany, became ill after riding Mission Space and subsequently passed away at Florida hospital Celebration Health. The autopsy indicated that a brain hemorrhage caused by severe and long-standing high blood pressure was the cause of her death, with no trauma related to the ride.
On June 29, 2006, a 12-year-old boy from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, was unresponsive when the ride ended. His father performed CPR until Reedy Creek paramedics arrived, but he was pronounced dead en route to Celebration Hospital. The ride was closed for investigation, but reopened the next day, after it was confirmed to be functioning correctly. The medical examiner found that the boy had an undiagnosed congenital heart defect.
The third tragedy occurred on August 1st, 2006. A 6-year-old boy fainted after riding Space Mountain and was taken to Celebration Hospital, where he would sadly pass away. The child, a terminal cancer patient, was visiting Magic Kingdom through the Give Kids a World program. The medical examiner reported that he died of natural causes due to a metastatic pulmonary blastoma tumor. And lastly, on December 7th, 2006, a 73-year-old man lost consciousness while on Space Mountain. He was taken to a hospital and died 3 days later. The medical examiner concluded that he died of natural causes due to a pre-existing heart condition.
In 2007, Disney World would face another 2 tragedies. On November 27, 2007, a 63-year-old cast member died from a brain injury she suffered 4 days earlier after being struck with a ride vehicle. Following her fall from a restricted area of the ride platform on May 23, 2008, OSHA fined Walt Disney World $25,500 for 5 safety violations, $15,000 for 3 serious violations, $7,500 for still missing a previously reported handrail, and $3,000 for not responding to OSHA's requests within the specified time. Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain. The Soul roller coaster at Disney's Animal Park opened in 2006. Situated in the park's Asia section, the attraction educates guests about Yeti folklore and search expeditions before taking them on a ride through the Himalayan mountains to uncover the truth behind the Mount Everest legend. Unfortunately, the ride's history was marred by tragedy just over a year after it opened. On December 18, 2007, 44-year-old Jeffrey Reed died on the attraction. According to NBC News, the Florida man was conscious when photographed during the ride's highest drop but was found unresponsive when the train arrived at the unloading station. An autopsy revealed that Reed died of natural causes due to a pre-existing heart condition, and Walt Disney World Resort was not held responsible, as health warnings outside Expedition Everest advised guests with certain health conditions not to ride.
In the following year, in 2008, there would only be one tragedy at Disneyland, California. On May 2nd, 2008, a businessman jumped to his death from his 14th floor balcony at a hotel. He was later identified as John Newman Jr., a dentist from Santa Cruz, California, and that's literally all the information I could find on him. Rest in peace. In 2009, Disney World would suffer once again with 3 more tragedies in their park. On July 5th, 2009, a tragic incident at Walt Disney World resulted in the death of 21-year-old Austin. The operator of Monorail Pink and Monorail Purple collided on the Epcot line near the Transportation and Ticket Center. This marked the first fatal crash in the monorail's 38-year history at the park. Following the collision, passengers were no longer allowed to ride in the operator's cabin. The crash occurred around 2 a.m., instantly killing Austin. The operator of the other train was unharmed but emotionally shaken. Several park guests received treatments at the scene. Bo Jones, deputy chief for the Reedy Creek Fire Department, described the aftermath as somber and tragic. Austin was a responsible and safety-conscious computer science student at Stetson University, known for planning his shifts to avoid fatigue. Disney's senior spokesperson, Michael Griffin, extended condolences to Austin's family and emphasized that safety remained a top priority. OSHA ruled the crash preventable and proposed fines totaling $44,000 for Disney, citing maintenance issues and repeat violations, later reduced to $35,200 in a settlement. An investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board found no mechanical problems with the trains or tracks, but identified an improper track switch alignment as the cause of the accident. The operator of the Monorail Purple attempted to reverse his train to avoid the collision. As a result, Disney implemented new sensors and operating procedures, discontinued guest cab rides, and placed 3 monorail employees on paid administrative leave. The NTSB's findings emphasized the failure of the shop panel operator to correctly align the switch beam, leading to the fatal crash. Changes were made to ensure such errors would not reoccur.
On August 6, 2009, a 47-year-old employee portraying a pirate in the Captain Jack's Pirate Tutorial show at Disney World slipped on a puddle on stage and struck his head against the wall. He was immediately taken to Florida Hospital in Orlando, suffering from a broken vertebra in his neck and severe head lacerations, requiring 55 stitches. Unfortunately, he succumbed to complications from the fall and passed away 4 days later. The Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular at Disney World is inspired by stunt scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark and features various pyrotechnic effects. The show opens with Indiana Jones navigating the hazards of a recreated Peruvian temple, dodging spikes, false floors, and booby traps to escape with a golden idol. It then shifts to the lively streets of Cairo, where a massive fight scene concludes with a fiery Jeep explosion. It reenacts Indy and Marianne's attempt to stop the Nazis from flying the Ark to Berlin, featuring a scaled-down German aircraft and intense combat. Tragically, during a rehearsal on August 17, 2009, 30-year-old performer Anislav Varbanov died after a head injury sustained while performing a tumbling role. The next day's performances were then cancelled in his honor.
In 2010, there were another 3 accidents in Disney World and 1 more in Disneyland, California. On January 10, 2010, a 9-year-old boy from Redington Beach, Florida was tragically killed by a Disney transportation bus at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground. The incident occurred while he was riding his bicycle with an 11-year-old girl. According to a Florida Highway Patrol report, the boy appeared to turn his bike into the road, colliding with the side of the bus and being dragged under its right rear tire. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The bus driver, who had 30 years of experience with Disney, was found not to be impaired or driving recklessly. The charges were deemed unlikely pending further investigation. In October 10th, the boy's mother filed a lawsuit against Disney for $15,106, which was settled out of court in 2012. On October 17, 2010, a 61-year-old man from Hickman, California, tragically jumped from the top floor of the Mickey and Friends parking structure in Anaheim, California. He left behind a note explaining that he was facing personal issues. In December 12, 2010, a 77-year-old woman with pre-existing conditions collapsed after exiting the Prince Charming Regal carousel ride in Magic Kingdom and later died due to the incident. Finally, on December 26, 2010, a 69-year-old Massachusetts man died after stepping in front of a moving Disney transportation bus in the parking lot of Disney's Port Orleans Resort. There was no lawsuit, as the victim was not in the crosswalk, giving the bus the right-of-way.
In 2011, there was only one tragedy at Disney World. On March 13, 2011, a 52-year-old cast member sustained head injuries while working on the Primeval World and Animal Kingdom and was airlifted to Orlando Regional Medical Center where he later died. The ride was undergoing maintenance and was closed to the general public at the time of the incident. OSHA later fined Disney $69,000 for safety violations, including a repeat citation for not having guardrails in place where an employee was working, an issue that Disney had been cited for previously.
In 2012, Disneyland would have another tragedy. On April 2nd, 2012, a 23-year-old man was discovered near the northwest corner of the Mickey and Friends parking structure and was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident was investigated as a On March 12, 2013, a 13-year-old boy from Springfield, Missouri, drowned while swimming in the 4-foot deep section of the Hippy Dippy pool at Disney's Pop Century Resort. At the time of the incident, there were no lifeguards on duty, and swimmers were warned they swam at their own risk. The boy was playing in the pool with his friends when he went missing. A paramedic vacationing at the resort pulled him from the water and, along with other bystanders, attempted to revive him with CPR. Despite their efforts, he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The incident left his family devastated, with his younger brother particularly distraught, expressing his anguish over the loss of his only sibling. Disney extended their condolences to the family and offered support during this very difficult time. In 2014, there were 2 more tragedies at Disney World. According to the DAM firm, in October of 2014, a 64-year-old woman lost consciousness on this Toy Story Mania ride located in Disney's Hollywood Studios ride section of the park and passed away. The death was not believed to be related to the ride. On December 25, 2014, a 22-year-old woman lost consciousness after riding It's a Small World and later passed away. It was later revealed that she had a pre-existing medical condition. These were the only fatalities that occurred in Disney World in 2014. And as you can tell, there weren't that much information on these cases. On April 12, 2015, a 36-year-old driving instructor, Gary Terry, was fatally injured during a run at the Exotic Driving Experience, a special attraction located at the Walt Disney World Resort where guests could drive high-performance cars on a racetrack. He was in the passenger seat of a Lamborghini when the driver, 24-year-old Tavon Watson, lost control and crashed into a metal guardrail. Terry died at the scene, while Watson sustained minor injuries and was taken to the hospital. The Florida Highway Patrol investigated and found that running the vehicles clockwise, contrary to the track's original counterclockwise design, might have contributed to the accident. However, it was deemed an accident, and no charges were filed against the driver since this occurred on private property. On July 7, 2015, a 55-year-old woman from Kingsport, Tennessee, passed away at Florida Hospital Celebration due to cardiopulmonary arrest and septic shock after losing consciousness on a ride. Her medical history revealed she had hypertension and congestive heart failure. On July 14, 2015, a 3-year-old child tragically drowned in a pool at Disney's Art of Imagination Resort. The child, who was visiting from out of town, became separated from his parents and was found at the bottom of the pool later that evening. Despite being rushed to the hospital, the child was pronounced dead.
On March 22, 2016, a tragic incident occurred at Disney's Contemporary Resort. A person was found deceased within the central A-frame tower of the resort. This prompted an immediate response from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, which then prompted an investigation into the circumstances around the death. As a result, the monorail service was temporarily suspended to allow for a more thorough examination of the scene. Although details were initially scarce, the police came to conclude that the individual had fallen from a significant height within the resort's central atrium. The investigation ruled out any foul play, and the authorities indicated that the circumstances pointed towards being an intentional act. This incident drew considerable attention due to it having happened within one of Disney World's most iconic resorts. On June 14, 2016, a heartbreaking incident unfolded at the Seven Seas Lagoon near Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. At approximately 9:15 p.m., 2-year-old Lane Graves from Elkhorn, Nebraska, was wading in the shallow waters near the shore of the lagoon when he was attacked by an alligator. Search and rescue efforts were launched, and his body was tragically discovered the following day at around 1:45 p.m. Lane was found 12 to 15 yards, 11 to 14 meters from the shore, submerged in approximately 6 feet, 1.8 meters of water. The medical examiner determined that Lane's cause of death was both drowning and traumatic injuries inflicted by the alligator. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Disney took several significant steps in order to enhance guest safety around the resort's waterways. Warning signs about alligators were erected, and several rope barriers were put up along the lagoon and across other bodies of water all throughout the resort. Additionally, Disney made temporary adjustments to some of their attractions, such as removing any reference to alligators on rides such as the Jungle Cruise following the incident. To honor Lane's memory, a lighthouse sculpture was unveiled in 2017 near the site of the incident, symbolizing the family's dedication to water safety awareness through the Lane Thomas Foundation. In October 2016, a tragic event occurred at Disney's Hollywood Studios involving a 68-year-old man from Memphis, Tennessee. The man, who was a tourist visiting the park, experienced a fatal medical emergency after riding the popular ride Star Tours. Shortly after disembarking, he began to feel unwell and lost consciousness. Despite efforts to revive him, he passed away. The incident was later reported as part of a quarterly filing with the Florida Department of Agriculture, which monitors the safety of the state's amusement parks. The medical examiner's report revealed that the man had a pre-existing heart condition, which combined with the physical stress and excitement from the ride likely contributed to his death. Additionally, other health issues were noted as contributing factors in this tragic incident. Star Tours is a motion simulator ride that can be intense, particularly for guests with underlying health conditions, and the attraction has posted warnings advising those with heart conditions or other serious medical issues to avoid riding. This case was documented in the state's list of serious ride-related injuries and illnesses, underscoring the importance of guests being mindful for their health when participating in such attractions. On November 26th of 2016, a tragic incident took place at the Mickey and Friends parking structure near Disneyland Resort in California. A 40-year-old man, whose identity was not revealed, fell from the structure at around 2 a.m. PST. Emergency responders quickly arrived on scene, and the man was rushed out to the UC Irvine Medical Center. Despite their efforts, he was shortly after pronounced dead at 3:08 a.m. PST. The incident occurred in the early morning hours, and there were no witnesses to the fall. The circumstances surrounding the fall led investigators to believe that it was likely intentional, but no further details were provided to the public. This case is particularly tragic as it highlights the ongoing challenge of addressing mental health issues, even in a place like Disneyland, which is supposed to be the happiest place on Earth. The Mickey and Friends parking structure, one of the largest in the world, has seen a few similar incidents over the years, raising concerns about the safety and security measures in place to prevent such tragedies. This incident prompted discussions about the need for increased mental health resources and potential structural modifications to the parking facility to prevent future occurrences.
In February 2017, a 54-year-old man with a pre-existing medical condition died after riding Big Thunder Mountain at Disney World. The Orange County Medical Examiner's Office noted that the death appeared to be due to natural causes, and the case likely did not require an examination since the man had been under a doctor's care. Disney confirmed that the ride was functioning normally at the time of the incident. Later in the year, on November 5, 2017, during the Disney Wine and Dine Half Marathon at Lake Buena Vista, a runner collapsed near the finish line in the Epcot parking lot and later passed away. Walt Disney World spokesperson Jock Waller expressed condolences to the runner's family and loved ones during this difficult time. Details about the runner, including their name and age, were not disclosed. The 13.1-mile race, in its 8th year, began at 5:30 a.m. at the Magic Kingdom parking lot and concluded at Epcot, attracting around 15,000 participants.
On July 9, 2018, a tragic accident occurred in Disney's Pop Century Resort, resulting in the death of 33-year-old Juan Alberto Ojeda. Ojeda was found unresponsive in the backstage area of the hotel, which is off-limits to guests. Despite efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead shortly after 9 a.m. The incident was not related to the ongoing construction of the Disney Skyliner transportation system. An investigation by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, determined that Disney was not at fault and no fines were issued. However, Ojeda's wife later filed wrongful death lawsuits against the manufacturers, distributors, and sellers of the cart vehicle involved in the accident, including Toro Co. and Wesco Turf. The status of these cases remains unknown. Disney acknowledged that employees were not required to read the manufacturer's manual for the equipment. On August 18, 2018, a 49-year-old man named Brian Christ was found deceased inside a burning car near Disney's Fantasia Gardens miniature golf course in the resort area. The Orange County Sheriff's Office stated that the death was not suspicious, but declined to disclose the cause of death or the origin of the fire.
On March 12, 2019, a worker died behind the France Pavilion at Epcot when he fell from the roof where the upcoming Remy's Ratatouille Adventure attraction was under development. The incident occurred around 5:14 p.m. The Orange County Sheriff's Office reported that there was no foul play involved. The identity of the man was not released, and further details were not available. 5 months later, on August 29, 2019, at about 3:20 a.m., a 37-year-old construction worker, Javier Jimenez, was fatally injured at Disneyland. While installing piping for a heating and air conditioning system, a crane carrying a large pipe hit a crossbeam, causing a large metal plate to fall and strike Jimenez, who was working in a trench. Despite efforts to perform CPR, Jimenez was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. Disneyland Resorts extended its sympathies to Jimenez's family and friends. Finally, on November 1st, 2019, during Disney's Wine and Dine weekend at Disney World, 58-year-old Mark Lockridge collapsed and died while participating in the 5K race. The incident occurred on the race course at Walt Disney World. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be related to hypertension and heart disease. Walt Disney World expressed their condolences, and the race, part of the annual Wine and Dine half marathon weekend, featured various running events.
On March 4th, 2020, deputies from the Orange County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to Disney's Contemporary Resort around 4 p.m. Following a report of a possible jumper, upon their arrival, they discovered an unresponsive woman who was later pronounced dead at the scene. There is no further information on this tragedy. Later in the year, Jessica Straub, a travel agent who cherished her visits to Disney World, shared her love for the park on Facebook, posting selfies with Mickey Mouse ears and describing the experience as feeling like home. However, her December 2020 trip turned tragic. On December 18th, 2020, Straub fell and struck her head at Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. Sustaining blunt force trauma, she passed away on December 22nd, 2020. According to the District 9 Medical Examiner's Office, which ruled her death as accident due to head trauma from the fall, although her obituary listed her death as December 20, 2020, and the lawsuit filed by her estate noted the date as December 22nd, 2022, these discrepancies were not clarified by her legal representatives. Straub, 43, lived in Bristol, Pennsylvania, and worked as a travel agent for Magical Enchanted Vacations. She was remembered for her love of Disney World, New Kids on the Block concerts, and sports teams like Pittsburgh Steelers and the Phillies. The lawsuit was filed by Justin Morrison of Philadelphia, who is listed as Straub's surviving brother, though he was referred to as her dearest friend and cousin in her obituary. Neither Morrison nor the law firm Morgan & Morgan, which filed the lawsuit, provided comments on the case. This incident is among other recent legal claims involving injuries at Orlando's theme parks, highlighting the risks that, while rare, do occur in these popular destinations.
On August 22, 2021, a 66-year-old disabled woman was informed that the wheelchair-accessible boats for the Jungle Cruise attraction were unavailable, but she was still allowed on the ride. After the ride ended, the woman had difficulty exiting the boat, resulting in a fall that caused a compound fracture in her leg. She was hospitalized and later transferred to a rehab center. Sadly, she contracted a disease and passed away on January 29, 2022. Her family subsequently filed a lawsuit against Disney, which has been elevated to a wrongful death claim. The lawsuit alleges that Disney permitted the woman to board the ride without ensuring it was safe for all guests, and failed to warn her about the difficulties of disembarking. Additionally, the suit claims that Disney employees laughed as she struggled and sustained the injury. The family is seeking damage and medical care, rehab, and pain and suffering. Disney is currently denying all allegations. On March 20th, 2021, a 66-year-old man experienced a medical emergency near the Spaceship Earth attraction at Epcot. He was taken to a hospital where he was later pronounced dead. The medical examiner's office determined that he died of natural causes due to heart-related issues. During the Memorial Day weekend of 2021, the Chancellor family from Mississippi visited Disney World's Epcot on the first day of their vacation. After riding Spaceship Earth, 58-year-old Johnny Chancellor, who had a history of heart problems, collapsed in front of his family and later passed away in the hospital. The medical examiner's office ruled his death as natural, attributing it to heart issues, with obesity and irregular heartbeat, and diabetes contributing factors. This was at least the second similar incident at Epcot in less than 3 months. Johnny's son, Justin, shared his deep grief over losing his father in front of him on social media, remembering him as a devoted Mississippi State University fan and a loving family man.
On September 25, 2022, 83-year-old Joseph Masters died from a heart attack after riding the Disney World People Mover with his wife. The man fell unconscious while on the attraction, and his spouse began panicking. She then started asking others on the ride for assistance and trying to contact her family members who were also at Disney. Once the attraction ended, Disney employees commenced CPR before paramedics arrived and transported Masters to a local hospital. Doctors tried to resuscitate him for half an hour to no avail, as he was declared dead soon after entering the hospital. It turns out Masters had a pacemaker and numerous troublesome health conditions like hypertension and diabetes. Authorities would consider his passing as natural, as a result of his ailments. He even had a large blockage of an artery near the right side of his heart, according to one doctor mentioned in the sheriff's report. Masters would leave behind his wife Alice, 2 daughters, a son, and multiple grandkids. Alice takes comfort in the location of her late husband's death. "I tell everybody now that my husband died in his happy place because he loved Disney. May Joseph rest in peace." 51-year-old Christopher Christensen put a stop on his life by leaping off the Disneyland Mickey and Friends parking garage on December 3, 2022. Hours before his passing, Christensen posted a lengthy note on Facebook which read as, "I hate when people leave this earth with so many unanswered questions. So I hope this provides some insight and perspective. This is my wife, Marlena. Yes, you have heard me correctly. Most of you don't know this, but we privately married 3.5 years ago. Marlena and I love and adore each other, and our relationship has been amazing up until recently. Unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, she and I got into a heated argument at home in front of the girls. Tempers were flared and strong words were exchanged between us. However, never in this exchange did I hit, slap, or hurt Marlena in any manner. Nor did I ever touch the girls. I never have and never will. I love the girls like my own, and they know that, as does everyone else who truly knows me. Unfortunately, Marlena's anger got the best of her that night, and she called the police, which landed me in jail that night. Yes, me. A man who has never hit or harmed anyone in his life. I think it's safe to say that Marlena regrets making that call because the events of that night have completely unraveled both of our lives. I am on the brink of losing my job, as I am out on administrative leave until my case is resolved. However, the legal system is extremely flawed, especially against men and fathers, and it's sickening how quickly and easily an innocent man can be thrown in jail based on zero evidence or proof. So here I am, writing my final Facebook post to all of you. I need you all to know that a gentle, kind, loving, and sincerely good man has been destroyed by one unfortunate night. It really is unfortunate. This is not me. This is not something that I ever thought would happen to me. With all of this said, I have truly loved education and leading thousands of students and families as a principal and FVSD for the past 21 plus years. I have made many wonderful connections with families over the years, and those who know me closely know how much I cared for my students, staff, and families. Please remember me for all of the good that I brought to the world of education. To all of my musician friends, thank you. Thank you for performing with me over the past 30 years. We have had a blast performing all over and creating such fond memories together. Music has been a wonderful outlet for me, as it has allowed me to have a different and creative world outside of my day job as a principal. I am sad to say that last night was my final performance. However, it went pretty well, and I am very proud that my final performance was a success. I have always loved performing, especially during the holiday season. I am going to miss it dearly. There is so much more that I want to say, but I'm going to spend the rest of today reaching out to those closest to me to let them know how much I love them. This is not an ideal way to go out, but at least I get to say some final words to the ones I love and adore. Take care, everyone. Please, please, please be kind to one another. Treat each other with kindness and grace. There is too much anger in the world, and people need to start treating each other better. What I've shared with you above is a prime example of how anger can really have long-lasting and extremely damaging effects on a person's life. Christensen had been facing legal woes before his death, as he had mentioned in his post. The police had arrested him on November 15th for misdemeanor battery and child endangerment, which he pleaded not guilty to during his arraignment. However, he was freed just 2 days later after posting a $10,000 bond and was set to appear in court the Monday after his passing. Shortly after Christensen passed away, the Daily Mail interviewed his daughter, Brittany. She labeled Marlena as abusive and alleged that she was responsible for destroying the family. The charges were inaccurate. Marlena has been very difficult in our family for about the last year, and we haven't had any contact with her. I just now started regaining contact with him over the last 2 weeks, and it's been really great. He'd been trying to figure out how to leave her. In my opinion, it seems like this, in his mind, was his way out of the relationship. She's been abusive to our entire family for 5 years. That's why we don't have any contact with her anymore. Brittany accused Marlena of keying her car after an argument when Christensen attempted to end the relationship. She had filed a police report about the incident, but nothing ever came from it. It was unresolved because she didn't admit to anything, but we had footage from her doorbell camera leaving the house in the middle of the night and then coming to my apartment where my dad was staying for the night and taking his car. So when we woke up, my dad's car was gone, parked at Marlena's house, and my car had been keyed on every panel. Marlena has shown a consistent pattern of manipulation and inappropriate behavior towards my family for some time now. Although my dad mentions in his post that their relationship was great up until 2 weeks ago, their relationship in actuality has been toxic and wearing on both of them. The night my car was keyed, my dad tried to break up with Marlena, and I was sent messages from her saying I was a horrible and disgusting excuse for a daughter and sister. To be honest, I never thought I did anything to her, but she refused to ever apologize for her words or actions, even when she reacted extremely towards my family. In my opinion, it was a slow chipping away at my dad's soul for much longer than just 2 weeks, and I wish at this stage that she could have just left my family alone. She's done a lot, personally to my family recently, to myself, to my husband, so there's a lot going on in this that is very complicated. Brittany also accused Marlena of lying to the cops and villainizing her father to them. She put him in a really horrible position that night and painted a picture of him that is inaccurate of his character, and I think it got too much for him. Marlena posted a comment on Facebook regarding Christensen's passing soon after the news broke. None of you know the full story. I'm living in a nightmare and trying to grieve. Chris was the love of my life, and I'm crushed at what happened. I didn't make him do this, and it's not my fault. I am not sick, I just know in my heart what's true. Brittany ended the interview by expressing hopefulness for Marlena's cooperation through Christensen's funeral. Her temper always got the best of her, and this time there's no chance for her apology or turning back. I believe she is in true grief now, as we all are, and the best condolence she can provide me and the rest of our family is cooperation through the funeral. Christensen is survived by his ex-wife, mother, 2 daughters, and a son. Rest in peace to Christopher.
A truck driver crashes into an unidentified 53-year-old Colombian man riding his bike on the ramp to Disney's Hollywood Studios during the early hours of February 2nd, 2023. Unfortunately, the bicyclist didn't survive the accident as he was pronounced dead at a local hospital soon after the truck struck him. On May 26, 2023, a 44-year-old man fainted and later died from a, quote, personal illness after riding Magic Kingdom's Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. It's unknown what happened on the ride, how the man passed away, or even what his illness was. Nearby parkgoers performed CPR on him with the assistance of a doctor, and paramedics soon arrived at the scene. However, their efforts to save him were futile as he passed away the following day. The man's identity is unknown, but his obituary describes him as, quote, a dutiful husband and father of 3 young boys, who was also a physician. 39-year-old Jeffrey Vanden Boom died from the blunt force trauma after falling from his hotel room balcony at the Walt Disney World Contemporary Resort on July 26, 2023. The authorities responded to the scene in the early hours of that Wednesday and declared Boom dead. They ruled his death as an accident, and Boom's partner Carmen did make a statement about this tragedy. She said, quote, "On Wednesday morning at Bay Lake Tower, I lost the love of my life. The lady who hugged me on the 5th floor when they were moving me to a different room was an angel sent to save me. If you're here, thank you. You were the first person to offer me comfort, even though he was gone for over 4 hours and people were in and out of my room. The resort's manager was terrific, and when I saw the tent, he kept me upright. The nurse who tried to provide CPR and bring him back to me is a saint. I know you couldn't do anything, but you tried to bring him back to me. Your efforts didn't go unnoticed. You are amazing. It was an accident. He would never have left me that way. If anyone can get me in contact with a nurse who was jogging and saw him and tried to save him, please pass on my appreciation and love." Boom left behind his parents, son, brother, and partner. I truly hope Boom is resting in peace and everyone has healed from such a horrific loss. On the night of November 15th, 2023, 24-year-old Jonah Alexander Edwards took his life by jumping off the Disneyland Pixar Pals parking garage. The police pronounced him dead at the scene, and Micah's brother and sister paid their respects on Instagram. Micah, his brother, wrote, "We lost our beautiful brother this week. Jonah Alexander took his life on Wednesday, November 15th. He was a pure light to everyone who had the privilege of knowing him, and I miss him so much. In the last few days, the love and comfort of Jesus have been overwhelming through the hands of our community. If I can only find any silver of hope, it's that his suffering is no more. Words can't begin to describe the pain I'm feeling right now. Please keep our family and friends in your thoughts and prayers." His sister Madeline would go on to say, quote, "We said goodbye today to our brother Jonah. The amount of pain I feel at this moment is unbearable. Jonah was the most incredible human I've ever known. He was filled with so much joy and light and relentlessly poured that out to others, even in the midst of his mental illness, even in the midst of his own pain. He was kind and caring. He was beautiful. More than anything, though, he loved Jesus and taught me to turn my anger at God into anger for God. He taught me to have a wild imagination, even as an adult. There was never an idea that I would tell him that it was too crazy for him. He always reciprocated it back. He showed me how to dream big. I love you so much, and I know you're finally free now, and not in pain. I'm eager to see your smile and dance with you again, one day with Jesus. I'm so sorry that this world was so cruel to you. Thank you for loving us so well. I miss you so much and love you forever. Rest easy, Jonah. I hope Micah, Madeline, and the entire Edwards family are currently doing well and at peace after losing someone who seemed to be truly one of a kind."
46-year-old Marnie plummeted to her death from the Disneyland Mickey and Friends parking garage on February 18, 2023. The officers found her body on that Saturday night and attempted to revive her until paramedics reached the scene. She was then transported to a local hospital and declared dead once she arrived. Marnie left behind her husband, Randy, and a young daughter. Randy told the press she was a loving mother to her daughter. "She was a caring wife to me. She was a talented hairstylist of 23 years, and her clients loved her. May Marnie rest in peace." On October 5th, 2023, 42-year-old Amy went to the Raglan Road Irish pub and restaurant at Disney Springs and later died from anaphylaxis after eating a meal, which triggered a severe allergic reaction. She had eaten corn fritters, onion rings, scallops, and vegan shepherd's pie and collapsed within an hour of leaving the restaurant from critical breathing complications. Amy had notified her waiter multiple times that she had a serious nut and dairy allergy, yet they still served her the food. The waiter had assured her and her husband that the food they'd serve her would be allergy-free, but sadly, it wasn't. When Amy collapsed, she self-administered an EpiPen and was rushed to a nearby hospital, but unfortunately, it was too late and she later passed away in the hospital. Months after her passing, her husband sued Disney and Raglan Road for over $50,000 in damages. Her father claimed that the restaurant was responsible for his daughter's death in an interview with the New York Post. Even when we go to restaurants around here, we make sure to tell the waiters that they don't have dairy or nuts around her. I always want to make sure every time we take her out. He also said, That morning, I drove her to the airport. That night, by 11 p.m., I get a call. I almost collapsed. I didn't tell my wife until the next morning. The husband called and I couldn't understand what he said because he was crying, but the doctor took the phone and told me. They told me they couldn't help her. Most heartbreaking of all were her dad's final words. She was my only child, so young, just 42 years old. Nobody can hold anything in this world. It comes and it goes. Over a month after Amy's death, her husband, Jeffrey, wrote a brief Facebook post about her. I miss you so much. Meeting you changed my life. I miss your smile, your laugh, dancing around the kitchen with you, exploring and traveling the world with you. I miss everything about you, baby. The world is such a darker place without you in it. And without you in my life, so is every day I wake up. I hope you are somewhere better and in a place where you can see all the tears I shed for you. I love you. Shortly after, her husband filed a lawsuit. Raglan Road updated its website to include a notice for guests with food allergies. Kindly note that we are not a gluten allergen-free restaurant. We cannot guarantee that any dish we prepare is free from gluten/allergen or free from cross-contact. Guests must notify their server for any allergy-friendly request. A manager will then discuss our allergy menu with you. Guests must use their own discretion to make informed choices based on their individual dietary needs. Amy's wrongful death lawsuit is still ongoing, and one can only hope that her husband can win the case and that he and her family can find peace they deserve. Rest in peace to Amy. 60-year-old Bonnie, a Disneyland employee, passed away after falling off a moving golf cart and hitting her head on the morning of June 5, 2024. Her colleagues had alleged that the driver of the golf cart was driving recklessly at 20 miles per hour and eventually hit a bump in the road, which caused Bonnie to fly out of the car and strike her head. She was taken to a local hospital in critical condition and died 2 days later. Ken Potrock, the Disneyland Resort president, made a statement about Bonnie's tragic death. We are heartbroken by the loss of Bonnie and offer our sincere condolences to everyone who cared for her. We are focused on supporting her family and our cast members through this tragic event and making sure they have the resources they need. May Bonnie rest in peace. Thank you guys so much for watching till the end of this video, and in case you're wondering why did I have so many cameos and why is this video so long? Well, the day I'm posting this video is actually the 3-year anniversary when I first created this YouTube channel, so as a thank you to you guys, I decided to do a huge collaboration special for the channel's 3rd birthday. Huge shout out to everybody who participated in this video, and if you like this video, you will for sure love this one, where I talk about America's most dangerous cults. And thank you guys for your continuous support.